A reading from the prophet Amos. This was one of Dr. Martin Luther King's favorite biblical verses, and it is very appropriate for the scene you will see today from 12 Angry Jurors. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Here ends the reading of God's holy word. I would invite you to stand to greet today's speaker, our director, Mr. Clay.
Thank you, Connor. You can sit down. It's a good day today, huh? Sun's shining. We got a sold-out play tonight. We got Friday Night Lights. We're going to win. We're dressed down. We did a great job with our accreditation. We came together as a community. I feel good. I want to thank Reverend Squire and the members of the, I almost said jury, the members of the vestry for inviting us to be a part of the chapel today. It's always nice, I think, to have the chance to show the community what we're doing over there in the theater department. We're going to show you a scene from this year's fall play this morning, 12 Angry Jurors. Some of you may have seen or at least heard of the film, 12 Angry Men. Anybody? Got a couple. I know Mr. Brandon, I think he shows it in his civics class. I think we have a middle school class that also shows it. In the 1950s, a television writer named Reginald Rose wrote a script for a television play based on his experience on jury duty. Actor Henry Fonda asked Rose to write an expanded version to be made into a feature film that Fonda would produce called 12 Angry Men. It's really one of the great courtroom classics, but it's interesting because it doesn't actually take place in a courtroom. It takes place in a jury deliberating room. It's a story of 12 jurors deliberating the guilt or acquittal of a 19-year-old boy who stands accused of the murder of his father. If he's found guilty, he will be sentenced to death. One dissenting juror, played by Henry Fonda in the movie, slowly manages to convince the others that the facts of the case are not as clear as they seemed in court, and that they have to take a closer look at those facts. Now, chances are very good that at some point in your life, each of you will be called into the courthouse to be interviewed for jury duty. Some of you are 18 already. Many of you will actually be selected to serve on a jury. There are two kinds of cases in which you could be asked to sit as a jury member. One is a civil case. That's when a person or a group of people claim to have incurred a loss as a result of a defendant's actions. And the other is a criminal case, when an individual is accused of committing a crime. In a criminal case, the jury must decide if there's a reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant. So let's hope that no one in here ever stands accused of a serious crime. But in this country, if you are, you have the right to a fair trial. I mean, now you guys are smart people. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I mean, you know this is part of our Constitution. But let me ask you to think about this notion for a minute. What does it really mean to us? I think we all share a desire to be able to live our lives as safely and happily as we possibly can. It's the reason that we all agree as members of a society or a community to know and practice a common set of rules and laws. We all agree not to drive too fast, or at least to pay the consequences if we do, because we know that if we're allowed to drive at whatever speed we want, our community's safety would be compromised. We all rely on a system of justice to settle disputes and to guard us and our loved ones against harm. And we all agree to let the courts serve as the venue for the final word on the administration of that justice, because it's the most reasonable and moral way that we can think of to do so. But it's not a perfect system. It's fragile, and it depends on the fact that we treat it as fragile. We have to understand its significance and treat it with the sanctity it deserves, or it might fail us. So in one sense, 12 Angry Men is a film that celebrates our American justice system because it depicts the workings of that system. Although the jury in the film is inclined to wrongly convict a man without taking a really close look at the facts of the case, the persistence of one particular juror ensures that the facts of the case are eventually examined at length. So a few of you may know that I was chosen for jury duty 2 years ago. It was close to production week for the musical, so I was particularly frantic at that time in my life. And we're all busy people. I mean, we go to Episcopal, we teach at Episcopal. But it's difficult to put one's life on hold even for a few days or a week, or in my case it was 2 weeks. It wasn't easy, especially since it didn't just affect me, it affected everybody I worked with. People had to take over my job. My absence had a significant effect on the people I work with. They had to run my classes, they had to run my rehearsals, they had to take attendance in my homeroom, etc. And I found that even when you're on jury duty and you're deliberating in the jury room, it's difficult to put your own life aside and focus all your attention on the information that's being discussed and reviewed. I mean, you hear about people who try to get out of jury duty, right? You know, leave it for someone else to do. But there's a reason it's called jury duty. In 12 Angry Men, there are 2 jurors who resent being on the jury, and one is worried about losing her job. The other has tickets to a baseball game. And by law, by the way, your employer is not allowed to fire you because you're on jury duty, even if it's for a year. You get paid a little too when you're on jury duty. You get a stipend. I got paid a stipend. Your employer can ask for that money, but Mr. Clark let me keep it because he's a nice guy. It seems to me that all we need to do is think for a minute about how justice is administered in other countries, other places around the world. And it won't take us long to realize how lucky we are to have the system that we do here in America. You know, 2 disputing parties are entitled to the opportunity to offer their version of events and to argue their case before a court in which a group of their peers can decide in favor of the one who offers the most sound and compelling arguments based on the law as applied to the facts of the case. But the facts are sometimes hard to interpret. We all bring our experiences, our values, our beliefs, our prejudices to our decisions. Bias and discrimination can threaten objectivity. The events in 12 Angry Men suggest that economic and racial prejudice, as well as political differences, must be overcome in order for a jury to come to a fair, fact-based conclusion. Juror number 10 is prejudice toward anyone who lives in the projects. She uses the word they in the play instead of he in reference to the defendant, suggesting that she can't make a fair judgment about the guilt or innocence of an individual. The original film version of 12 Angry Men depicts a jury with varied agendas and perspectives, but it's still a jury comprised of all white men. So the Domino Club is presenting an updated version of the story, retitled 12 Angry Jurors. A jury of today would be comprised of a much more diverse cross-section of society. Our jury represents a wider mixture of perspectives, varying in race, socioeconomic class, education, age, and political ideology. One particular juror's point of view is even clouded by a specific personal experience. 12 Angry Jurors is a great play to do in the black box. It's a claustrophobic play with a smaller cast that seems to lend itself to a more intimate performance space. We're also able to play with audience placement in the black box, so we chose to stage this play arena style with audience on all sides. Because among other things, this play is about perspective. In this play, what the audience sees really depends on where they sit, and that's intentional. So when you watch our scene today, please remember that we've restaged it for the chapel, and we apologize if certain sections have trouble seeing or hearing. Sound can be a challenge in this space, but we will be as loud and clear for you as we possibly can, and you guys got to try really hard to hear us. We apologize to you freshmen over here for maybe not seeing some of the things you're going to see, and you guys over there too. You can turn your heads. So anyway, right now we'd like to present a scene from 12 Angry Jurors for you, and welcome the cast to the stage.